How do you feel? What is, well, how can I put it? Is it different feeling playing Western music than Balinese in a group?
Yeah, absolutely.
The way you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely for me. And it's strange because another thing, I think I found the sort of particular challenges of Balinese music, so memory and complicated kind of rhythmic patterns that semi-repeat and semi-change and things like that, were quite different from all the musical skills I'd already learnt. Like, I really did things from memory. It was more about kind of phrasing and making tone and a sweet sound, and so to suddenly play something very percussive and relying a lot on a kind of sort of a logical process, or like, okay, I need to just get this in my head from doing it 20 times, there's no other way, it's not, you can't kind of work it out. Very different, but then, because I think it felt quite separate from my previous experience, it felt so great to grasp it a little bit. I mean, still on the way, but there's also a sort of animation and projection that I think you need to play Balinese music, like a kind of excitement when you play, and that you have to like fire out to the audience, and yeah, I mean, I kind of, yeah. But I think that was maybe a really good thing about spending so much time in Bali, kind of watching and hanging around with musicians, was seeing, yeah, like so much is expressed in people's faces and things like that. I mean, there's a lot akin to the dance in terms of how you play, and I find that really exciting and enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole choreography when you're playing, and yeah, and then there's the kind of vibrancy of the sound and the fastness, and I mean, it's epic. Yeah.
I think for me, it's not. I mean, I should say I play a lot of non-Western music and have played in quite a few non-Western kind of music ensembles, I suppose. More kind of percussive, so with maybe kind of Ghanaian drumming groups or samba or maracatu, or where a lot of things work much more on that kind of feeling basis. You're not kind of sat there working through a score or anything like that. So I suppose that's something I'm familiar with, but regardless of that, that aspect of gamelan not being new to me, in contrast to being used to a more classical kind of training, because I had some kind of classical lessons with guitar and piano and things, but I was often quite interested in kind of learning things for myself and kind of working more by ear. But having said all that, gamelan was still a new way of working with a group with sound, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of can be quite rejuvenating for a range of musicians about it, because it's a challenge, and not that it's not in any way just a cerebral kind of challenge, because it's a challenge on these other levels as well.
And
yeah.
But I think that the other thing that I've really enjoyed, and sort of as we do more and more performances as a group, is this a real excitement when performing of being around other people, and knowing that there's going to be a bit that I might always kind of enjoy looking over to this particular person, and then we sort of play it together or something like that. That's and that's very there's something very free about, I guess, because by the point that you're performing something that you've learnt, it's absolutely fixed in your hands. You're not really having to worry too much about much of a thought process in that.
No.
But you're then really free to kind of enjoy it within the group.
Yeah, but and then just kind of following on from that, I mean, that's something I've really felt this past, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 months or however long time it is with Lila Cita. I've really kind of felt that in some ways there's a kind of group memory in operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just the case that
or not,
or not, yeah. But it's not just the case that there are 2 or 3 people who know it very well, and you're copying everything you do. It's strange to sometimes imagine yourself playing those parts, I find, in absence of the group being there.
Yeah. That you sort of all just start off and find your way through, and
right.
Like other things will interject that remind you, and then at
that point because there's so many triggers. And when you take a part off in isolation, and I mean, there were quite a few pieces I was learning and trying to learn in a short space of time to be able to do the recent performances and things. And so I was, you know, at times, whether it was on the train or at home, kind of going through and listening and kind of, you know, doing this and getting a couple of strange looks, but, you know, why not? Make use of the time. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, there was always something a bit strange about it, because sometimes I'd feel like I'd really nailed it in listening to an isolated part, and then suddenly you kind of play it with all the other dynamics and with all the other parts of the group and all the dynamics, and suddenly it kind of shifts. And I think it is amazing how one piece can sound so different. But I think a lot of that can be more from when you're playing it than when you're kind of watching it as an audience member. I don't know what your take on that is.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when I first, I was sort of drawn, but also I guess that's maybe one of the things that slightly held me off in terms of learning to play, is it just seemed like this kind of glittering wall, but that I had no idea what was going on for ages. Yeah.
Kind of noise or something.
And still, I think when you hear a new Kebior piece, it's very hard to take in all the time. Like it's just sort of, there's so much happening, and it's just incredibly fast. There's time like trying to transcribe it, just thinking this is.
I've like recently with the Opera House, I was just trying to understand, like, various friends and family who came down. I was just trying to understand how they were engaging with it, like from that point of view of not being familiar with the music at all.
Yeah.
And what was it that, what did you get from that, and how could you engage with it? And in a way, like, not envious of them, but like just really intrigued.
Yeah.
Really intrigued by this sense that you're coming to this for the first time.
I think from what I can perhaps remember, and also from similar sort of discussions with people who've come and seen, is I think it's just more it's a single impression perhaps, rather than like the idea of there being different pieces that are kind of distinguishable. I think it often seems quite confusing, or like, was it the one at the end or the beginning, or they
all sound quite similar.
Yeah, and it's strange because it seems like, but it's so full of contrasts, and like, surely the one in the middle is so slow, and but that and I think there's also their kind of visual impact as well. Like it's so bright, seeing the instruments and seeing the movement and things, that in itself becomes an impression.
Sure, the whole visual aesthetic.
Yeah.
Right, it becomes a gong or a nice or a beautiful
like
boat or something.
The gold leaf.
So you were joining LSO and then Lila Cita.
Yeah.
How is it different playing with LSO compared to Lila Cita? You've been in both.
Yeah. There's a very different atmosphere with both.
How do you see the at the LSO? It seems that even though somebody's new, they just come in and then join, and then they're playing together. It seems it works. Yeah. The level doesn't matter, so they can work as a group. Yeah. Can you say that?
Yeah, I think it's a nice system that I think the first part of each session is always open, and that will often begin with just working through quite a short cycle or something like that. So there's always something that everyone can do, and then maybe the second half becomes a bit more focused on towards a concert or a new piece or something like that. But I like that. Yeah, it's also, I find it nice when friends become interested in gamelan, that you've got something you kind of offer. Like if you really want to know, then you can just come along and and take part.
So you would suggest people
come
play?
Yeah, definitely after the Opera House as well. There's been various people, and I say, well, you can just go along and play it.
Yeah,
and
I think it's a really nice feature of it, that every session has this real openness about it. Yeah, and I think Lila Cita is quite a mysterious. It was strange for me because when I was in Indonesia, there were 2 Lila Cita members who I got to know really well and played with a lot, and so by then coming and joining the group after already having sort of 2 close friends, it made it quite different. But I can sometimes feel when a new person arrives, I wonder how it feels to be that new person, because it's a strangely undemonstrative welcome you get. I think people are very pleased when someone comes, but there's very little show made of it, and there's a slight feeling of like, not necessarily that people have to prove their ability, but they have to prove they're in it. You know, they're going to come and try and learn.
I think that's definitely something you feel.
Yeah. It's strange though, but I don't think it's particularly. I don't think there's like a barrier in terms of people's ability. I think it's sort of assumed also that when people have been asked, they've been sort of invited for a reason. But I think it's very open, and people are very willing to help. There's certainly not a kind of. I don't think there's a feeling of people like not wanting to share, or people maybe shyer or more helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think bearing in mind. Sorry.
No.
Just bearing in mind that in London you can do so many different things. You know, you can kind of go along to 1 or 2 sessions with so many different groups, whether you're a musician or a dancer. And I think sometimes there is a mentality that's encouraged by big cities that, in a way, because there's so much choice, you can just kind of flip-flop between so many different things.
There's not really much interest in that as an idea for people who might want to join Lila Cita. I think there's a sense of like, because it's really frustrating if you need someone to sit next to you to play the interlocking part with you, and if they're missing, then it's frustrating. And there's enough of that because of various reasons why people have to not be there. But just the idea that you just kind of pop in and have a go and then leave is. Yeah, and I suppose that's in a way that's like the group's way of communicating that in a.
Yeah.
You can't do it by like you have to sign up because you have to want to do it.
Right.
The other thing is if you want to give up 2 evenings a week every week, you've got to really want to be there.
It's like a lot of groups will kind of operate like that. There is this sense that it's not like a wariness of people, but it's just kind of
slow initiation or something.
Yeah, it's just like the kind of, well, you know, is this person committed, or is it, you know, they end up gonna, you know, go for 2 or 3 sessions.
They're seeing it as a kind of novelty experience.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that makes I very much like the slightly weird social feeling about Lila Cita that is not. There's nothing. It's very honest. I feel like the warm feeling that there is among the group. It's generated through time and just through like a gentle sort of shared experience. There's not a kind of need for people to say large statements about what it is to be in a group. I guess I'm now doing that, but but generally there isn't any of that.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean, people are kind to one another, but in a sort of quite an understated way.
Yeah, and maybe in terms of a difference between Lila Cita and the LSO group, the fact that the LSO group is kind of open to the public and is always kind of an open forum means that on some level people need to perform socially more. Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't spent so much time in it, but it does. But when I've sort of joined in to help out with the performance, it feels like it's a group that's proud of itself and operates like an ensemble, not just like a kind of drop-in centre.
Yeah, definitely. But then at the same time, there's like, you know, on the break, that if somebody has come along for the first time, a lot of people will go around and kind of have a bit of a chat to them, and I suppose
this should never happen at Lila Cita.
Well, maybe it's
not so much. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just for all of those reasons you've just been talking about, just because, and maybe because there is an element to which it's more like some kind of, I don't know, some kind of social gathering. I think that's a key dimension. I think possibly of the LSO group. Not that that's not true with Lila Cita.
Yeah.
But I think for me, in terms of the difference between the two, I think again it's a bit like Durham Java and South Bank Java. It's like a redefinition about what Balinese Gamelan means, which was kind of I became more keen to pursue after being in Bali last year for 3 months. Because I was on there was a 3-month scholarship offered by the Foreign Ministry, which was Gamelan
like
and
a mini
dance.
dance kind of thing.
Yeah, except organised by completely different people.
Right.
So you were learning gamelan for 3 months in Bali.
Yeah, learning gamelan for 3 months in Bali, but essentially there were 50 of us from around the world, 31 countries in total. And then we were split up into 4 different art centres: Bandung and Bandung and Jogja and Solo and Bali. And at the end of this time, we needed to kind of go to Java and do a concert for 5,000 people. So regardless
it's about the show.
Right, it's absolutely about the show. Almost 100%, I would say.